com. I'm here today with David Howard Thornton to speak about the Mean One. He's the titular character himself. You may know him better as Art the Clown from the Terrifier franchise. Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me, Connor. Nice to meet you.
You as well. Uh, I watched the film last year, and I got a chance to do a refresher last night, and I'm glad I did because it's such a fun film, and I have it's one that I think people that are in the mood for something. There's not a lot of horror holiday films. There's Black Christmas,
No.
there's Krampus, but you don't get a lot of horror films in the holidays. Um,
Oh no, you don't definitely don't. And this is like almost like the Hallmark Channel made a horror movie, which is kind of fun about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the fun of it is the charm is just how kind of it's it's a parody in a way if it's also a satire, but yeah, you definitely get a feel that it's it's just you and the cast just seem to be having a ton of fun. Uh but
Oh, for sure.
yeah, the what drew you into taking on this role? Are you a fan of that character? I'm not sure if we're allowed to say the exact character, but are you a fan of like Jim Carrey's portrayal, or you just wanted to do a holiday film?
Yeah, I think we can actually, everybody knows what this is a parody of. So
Okay,
that because that's what it is. It's definitely a parody of the classic Grinch story.
gotcha.
And I grew up on the original story, and then oddly enough they didn't know this when they originally cast me as the mean one, but I had toured with the national tour of How the Grinch Stole Christmas the musical for 5 years as the understudy for Stephen Carl's Grinch.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so yeah, so I have a long history with this, I guess, story this is a parody of. So yeah, it's very near and dear to my heart. It definitely made it grow 3 sizes.
Yeah, well, you were fantastic in it, and one of the things that I love about your performance in this film and also in your Art the Clown role is you do so much with your movements and your mannerisms, and because both characters, I mean, they're different, but they're both murderers. is
Yeah.
It's like you get a lot out of no dialogue. Is that
Yeah.
something that you've like? Is it something that you have a lot of like past work on before the Terrifier series, like or like as far as doing work with no dialogue, or was Terrifier like the first time that you like went into that and then into the Mean One?
Well, Terrifier was really the first time I've ever really done work with no dialogue. I was always a voiceover guy or character actor, so like that's always been my biggest strong suit is my voice. I do over like 200 voices and
Oh,
25 different dialects. I that's how I'd always build characters for myself. I would discover the voice and everything would just kind of fall into place after that. And I didn't have that luxury with art. But the good thing was I have a long history of doing a lot of physical comedy, and I love that type of comedy. I think it's really fun and creative, and I had a great education growing up as a child, watching the great physical comedians of old and the great silent comedians of old.
yeah.
I was watching the old, Charlie Chaplin and Three Stooges and Marx Brothers and Buster Keaton films, and then like my aunt gifted me a box set of the Mr. Bean videos, all of his shorts when I was a teenager, and I just glommed onto those. And I had always wanted a chance to play a character kind of like Mr. Bean, that just silent mischievous type of character, because I think that's such a fun thing. He's very cartoonish, and I was like, God, that would be fun to do some kind of variation of a character like that one day. I just never imagine I'll be able to turn that into a horror character. So it's
Yeah.
like it's just a new little twist on that all, because you do have a lot of those silent horror slasher characters out there, but they're never really about the physical comedy of it all. It's all about just like that, just turning the heads at an angle or something like that, just stalking people. And I liked having a chance to do something more creative with it and bringing some comedy into it, because I think horror and comedy together like peanut butter and chocolate. There's such a some of my favorite horror movies have a lot of comedy in them because it's the comedy helps bring you on a more of a roller coaster ride. It's like if it's just constant horror, or serious, it kind of gets stale after a while. But when you have the horrible things that happen, and you have a joke that comes in afterwards, it kind of helps you breathe a little bit, and then you can get them again with another good scare. So you're constantly on a little roller coaster ride there emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely outdo yourself in your performances, and I really hope that I mean, obviously, I want you to continue doing Art the Clown because I love that character to death. But I do want to or hope to see you because you've done stage work before. You said with the Grinch.
Yes.
So I really do you have any kind of aspirations to go beyond your silent work in film so far? And because I know you did like the short Joker role.
Yes.
Yeah, which I mean that's a big get. But like
Yeah.
anything like that where you'd like a more dialogue focused role, is that something that you want to pursue beyond what you're currently doing?
Oh, definitely so, especially Joker. I mean, because the what you mentioned was I years ago. God, that was hard to believe how long ago that was now. But I played the Joker on a fan made web series called Nightwing Escalation, the third season of that, and we actually never got to finish it, unfortunately, because it's all fan made. So we're all doing our own things, and we just weren't able to all come back together and actually finish the whole entire series. But I had a lot of fun with that, and I'm like, that's a character I really would love to tackle again because I keep experimenting with him, growing more with him, and finding new nuances to the character. And I really want to bring him to life in a bigger way, either on a on film or in a TV series, live action wise. I really want to do a really true comic depiction of the Joker, and that's why I love, especially with the dialogue. It's like if like the script writer we had for Nightwing, he understood how to write Joker. He understood his monologuing and his
Hmm.
humor, his because Joker is such a master wordsmith. He really knows how to manipulate the English language, and he just loves to hear himself talk. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god, if you can get that right type of writing, if you get some of these just comic writers to come in and write Joker dialogue, or you get Paul Dini to come back in and write the
Yeah.
characters, like, oh, because it's like his monologues are so good. I've memorized several of his monologues from The Killing Joke because they're just so well written. Like I I I I love playing characters like the very intellectual characters like that. They're a lot of fun. Like I come from a family English teacher, so I my grandmother especially was a master at the English language. That woman could eviscerate people to their faces with the biggest smile on her face, and they had no idea that she was insulting them left and right because she just could use words and just say them in certain ways, and you're just like, oh, she is being so sweet. She's like, oh no, she just called you a dumbass, and you have no idea. It's like I love a well written character like that, and I love chances to play some more of those type of characters. Definitely a lot of fun, and I'm getting some of those kind of offers. I do earlier this year, I filmed a movie that's hopefully coming out soon called The Dead Place. We've already applied for the interim agreements and stuff like that
Oh,
for it.
that's
And
fantastic.
so I get to talk in that one. So it was fun actually having some dialogue in. Though it meant I had to sit down and memorize a script again. I was like, man, it's been a while since I had to memorize lines.
Is that I mean, you can't really speak on it, but is it
Mhm.
a horror film or is
Oh
it
yes, definitely a
okay?
horror film.
The title seemed
Yeah,
horror. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, that's fantastic. Yeah, and you said it's already been filmed or
Yes, yeah. We filmed. I filmed that one back in like April.
oh wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, hopefully the everything goes all right with the
Yeah.
yeah. So real quick, back to the mean one is the diner scene.
Oh
The
yes.
Yeah, the diner scene is so like it's the standout scene in the film to me. Like I love that scene, and I was just curious because it's so like as soon as you see that big van of Santa Clauses come in and and all the miscellaneous others, I was just like, well, this isn't good. So, but yeah, I was that there's so much fun like your introduction there was so pure, like it was so Grinch, but also just so pure, like what we know about you so far with
Yeah.
your character work. Was all that like scripted, all the kills, or like ahead of time, or was it like the day of you and the filmmakers planned it out, or how far like was that
Yeah.
like?
A lot of that was scripted out, but then we did a lot of changes on the day too. Because yeah, there's some things that were in the scripts that actually we actually never got to do, unfortunately. But yeah, it was there. It was because we just went with the flow. We
Mhm.
had a great stunt director on set that day, and it was just me and a bunch of stunt actors, and so he was trying basically to capitalize on what all of his stunt actors could do
Okay.
and showcase their abilities and stuff like that. I was just going through and just tearing up the place and having fun. They're the ones doing all the hard work. They're the ones having to flip off of things, go fly into things and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But it was like one thing I did not know that they were going to be doing with it was with the guy in the Christmas tree costume. I had no idea that was a thing, and so he comes walking out in that thing, and I just lost it. I was like, "Oh my god, this is hysterical! This is it's." I was I we had to do some retakes because I would just get tickled while I was
I mean,
doing
yeah,
all that with
that
him.
kill is so
Oh
fun.
my
Just
god!
because you hear the deflation too,
Yeah.
and
Oh, so much fun. There was a lot of playing around that day, and I love that was just a fun day for me. And plus, I have a special place in my heart for doing that to SantaCon people because I live here in New York City. I used to wait tables, and
okay.
the worst I always say like the worst days to work were like Valentine's Day, um, Cinco de Mayo, uh, St. Patrick's Day, and probably the worst of all was having to work for SantaCon
Wow. Yeah.
because you would just get these drunk assholes coming in dressed as Santa and elves, and they're just puking on things, just stumbling, breaking stuff. It's just like, oh god, it's a nightmare. It's like I always try not to go anywhere that day in New York when SantaCon. I'm like, I'm staying inside today because I just don't want to deal with drunk idiots. This is like when I saw this scene in the script the first time, I'm like, oh hell yes, we are. Yes, yes, yes. This is gonna be great therapy for me from those years of having to actually deal with those kind of douchebags in real life.
Yeah, yeah, that totally worked out for you. You have, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely some therapy time. With the when in the film itself, the Grinch has like kind of like a roar growl.
Mhm.
Was did at the when you were filming that, like did you vocally do something to represent where to put that in? Because it seemed added in post that,
Yeah.
but it's definitely the first introduction. It just adds like an extra element of like in my eyes, it's just like it's pure B movie fun, and that's
Oh,
just like an
definitely.
extra like component of it is just the sound effects and the and like all the I don't want to spoil anything, but in the cave near the end, all the body parts and stuff, all that's just
Mhm.
so much fun to just see
Oh yeah.
as far as practical effects go.
Oh yeah.
uh
That's yeah, I did some you actually do hear some of my actual growls and roars in there, but they also did some, put in ones too. So it's like whatever makes it better, I think.
yeah. How long did it take for you to get into the Grinch makeup?
Oh, that took a while. I think that took about maybe 3 hours or so.
Three
Because
hours
that was yeah, it was a very talented makeup artist Tatiana that did my makeup for that. And it's just like it's a lot of patience because it's you have to glue this prosthetic on, and we actually used a prosthetic for a dog mask.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's really cool about it. It was a dog, but whoever designed this thing did not design it for people. It seems like because first of all, the nose was not I think they built this off of someone that had a very tiny little nose, and they didn't put air holes in there for the nose. So it's just like it's on me. I'm like, I cannot breathe out of my nose right now. And we tried to like drill some nose holes in there just for me to try to get some air in. But it's like
Yeah.
when you're doing 12-hour shoot day and you're having to mouth breathe the whole entire time. It felt like I had a cold the whole entire time. And at the same time, I understood why, like, when Jim Carrey did the Grinch movie, why he had that kind of why he talked like that the whole entire time, because yeah, when your nose is plugged
Yeah.
up like that, you just kind of, that's actually kind of how I was talking the whole time too. It's just like, that's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's how long in comparison did it take to get in that makeup versus the like the first time you ever got into the art makeup?
I would say it was about the same amount of time, but with art, we've been able to streamline the whole makeup process, and now it takes about an hour or so for me to get the makeup on. Originally, it took about 3 or 4 hours to put me in the makeup because Damien would not pre-paint the mask, and so that's what usually takes the longest is having to both characters is having to paint the face. It's like it doesn't take too long to glue everything. It's doing all the detailing. It's like that's what impressed me with Mean One with Tatiana. Is like all of that was airbrushed. All the facial features on there, that was all airbrush. I'm like, that's amazing skill. She's like an artist with an airbrush.
Yeah, it's very impressive work. It
Mhm.
looked great. The the for the most part, it was all practical. For the most part, right? There was a few digital effects, but like the
Yeah, like the
violence and
blood and
everything.
stuff. Yeah, you would see a lot of blood splatters and stuff like digital and stuff like that. But it's like that was more due to time constraints because we were on such a limited time schedule to do all that kind of stuff. And also,
Oh,
just budget wise too, is like bringing all that kind of practical effects costs a lot of money too.
yeah, but I think the film as it is has a lot of
Yeah.
charm with how it's.
Oh, I think so, and I think that's part of the fun behind it is like it has that like that cartoonish look to it in that way, and I think it's like I said, it's like a Hallmark Channel horror movie, so it has that fun cheesiness quality to it.
Yeah, well, I will. It's I'm tiptoeing because I do want to talk to you so bad about the final like battle. The
Hmm.
final battle was just so much fun, and Cindy
Yeah.
is such a badass in that scene. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I loved like just aesthetically all the holiday like the shotgun being like peppermint and
Yeah.
like all that was just so great and you and her final battle, well, not the final battle, but with the bat that that
Yeah.
whole that one I you did have a legitimate like scream. I heard your voice there like
Yeah.
when you get stuck, but it's just the creativity, the way that the film just goes and concludes with you. It's just so, in my eyes, it's just so clever and such a
Yeah.
great play on the like. I mean, it's a Christmas classic, The Grinch, and
Hmm.
I just love how like I thought it was going to go one way, and it just in a way it does, but in another way it's
Hmm.
like such a surprise. so
Oh,
so
I love the ending. The ending actually, when I first read the script, it was a different ending in a way, how it all happened. I don't want to reveal anything, especially
yeah.
if people haven't seen it yet. But it's like I was like, oh, that's such a great twist on it all. I love that, and what we actually ended up doing, I think, even works better. It makes more sense in that regard, and I was so happy we did that. But it takes a nice emotional turn in there, and I really liked that.
do, do you think as far as story wise, do you think your character was so like, because even when after in the first few minutes tragedy happens with a family member of hers, and then
Hmm.
but then he continues to come after Sydney, do you think that is just because of how mean she was, calling him a monster in the opening
Hmm.
segment, and that's why he comes back to hunt her down, and that's his target? It's basically his Cindy in the Scream
Yeah.
universe, like, and
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Oh, I definitely think so. It's just like he's because I think yeah, that's it's he went through trauma himself.
yeah.
because I mean, he wasn't trying to hurt anybody or anything like that, and an accident happened, and everything turned against him, and so he became the monster they all thought he was. And it's like that. That's why I love. He has a great character arc in there, and I think that's what's really cool about it.
Yeah, and the I love that in a way the ending opens it up where it's like if you or the filmmakers wanted to somehow come back,
Hmm.
you could. And then I just like to think that the sequel, if it were to happen, would be led by wherever that box went, where the delivery
Yeah.
guy came and grabbed a box full of not good stuff, and then it just disappeared. So I'm like, where'd that box go? I don't think it went anywhere good. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just the mean one comes out on October 3rd, VOD, physical media. Is like, do you recommend it to be more of a watch for Halloween or Christmas time, or it's good for both?
I would say, I mean, of course, it's more of a Christmas movie in that way, but I think it's good for both. If you're looking, that's what I love about this time of year. You can get some of those movies in there that can go both ways, and that's what's kind of fun about it. Especially I love horror movies that are also like Christmas movies, because I think there's more longevity to it that way. It's like, oh, even like movies like Nightmare Before Christmas. It's
Yeah.
just like it's one of those things that last. It can go through Halloween through Christmas. It's fun.
Yeah, no, I recommend the film so much. I think it's so much fun. I think it's a great film for really any time right now. So it's like anybody watching, make sure to check it out October 3rd. Uh,
Yes.
Now, real quick, I do want to dive into just a couple very quick Art the Clown questions because
Sure.
I just, as a huge fan. So I'm me personally, I've always been a fan from SNL to just his current life as Pete Davidson, and
Yes.
you were in Bupkis, and I'm not afraid to spoil it because I mean it's just so great and it's a reason for people to watch that show. You were in it. What led to that? Like, what led to you being in it?
It's Pete's a huge fan of Terrifier. Even from the first film, he told Damien that he was showing the cast members when the first film came out, when he was still on SNL. He was constantly bringing people and just, no, you got to see this movie, man. This is an awesome movie. So when part two came out, he personally contacted Damien, and he rented out a theater just so he and Damien and our producers and his people could watch Terrifier 2. And he's like, I love this character. I wanted it's like, and so he went to Damien. It's like, I'm doing this show called Bupkis. Is there any way Dave can come on and be Art in this one scene?
Yeah,
And we're like, oh yeah, of course, man. We'd be honored. That would be awesome. And it works so well because it's a hallucination. So it totally works in the whole scheme of things. And I that was just a lot of fun because I never imagined I would be getting a call from his people and like, hey, Pete wants you on set. I'm like, oh my God, yes, of course. And that was wild. That was just so wild.
yeah.
He's a
That
cool dude.
he seems like it.
He really is.
he's coming up into my neck of the woods soon, so I'm hoping
Yeah.
to go see a show. But
He's a great guy. He's like, he's just such a he's one of these, he's so self-aware of himself, and he's just such an upbeat, just personable guy. He's loyal to a fault, all that. He's just great dude. Glad I've got to get to know him.
oh, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
your appearance. While I was aware at some point in the series you were going to pop up, but when in that context, it was just so good.
Oh, it was fun. They just let me play, and it was because usually, when we film, there's maybe like 5 or 6 people in the room. This one, it was a bunch, like about 100 people in this room, so I felt like I was back on stage again, and just hearing people laugh, and there's a lot of important people in that room too, which was really cool too. And I had no nerves that day. I was just playing. They were just throwing different props at me.
Yeah.
They had me do the Wu Tang. They're just like, let's just throw different things at you, see what you can do. So they're just letting me play an experiment. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm getting to do this, and I'm in front of like all these NBC executives just going crazy like this. It's like just walking on set is just seeing all those people just go nuts over seeing me like that. I was like, this is insane, absolutely insane.
That's fantastic. The
Yeah,
when Terrifier 1, to me, like there's so much like like I mean, I discovered it probably at the start of the pandemic. That was when I was just roaming Netflix, and
yeah,
I discovered it, and I showed my dad and my brother, and I was like, you gotta watch this.
sweet.
And like, and it's always like as soon as it's like at first it's just like I don't know, like it's a creepy clown, I don't know, and then as soon
Mhm.
as you get to that pizzeria and you're like waving and everything, and it's just that's when you just get so into the film. That's such an iconic scene, uh, and but obviously everybody goes to they try to compare the biggest murder to the biggest murder of the second film, uh,
Yeah.
and so I'll do the same here. Did you think that like was it? I imagine just because it was so much more complicated and there was different more elements to the sequel's brutality in that scene. That one
Yeah.
was probably harder to film.
Oh, definitely so. Definitely so. That took about a week to film because
Wow.
all those different practical elements that we had to do. I think like we had we actually had started filming that scene before the pandemic happened, and we had to take a break because Damien had to build all the prosthetics, and the pandemic happened. We're like, oh man, and we were like, oh crap, what are we gonna do? Well, Damien wasn't necessarily too happy with how some things that we had already shot had gone. And he's like, "Well, you know what? We got all the time in the world now because pandemic. I can sit here and make all these prosthetics. So I'm just going to go back to the drawing board and revamp this scene." And so he added more to it than was originally in the script. And so we went back and we had like we just decided let's just take the time we need on this scene. And so we took like 5 days to film it,
Yeah.
and it worked. It worked. And I have to give all the props to Casey Hartnett that played Allie in that because that was 5 days in a row that she was having to do all that emotional, you know, just draining work. I've had to do scenes in other movies where I've had to scream and yell, and I'm like, I would lose my voice in like maybe 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how these girls do this. And especially with her 5 days of doing that. And it's like, God, she had to been so drained by the end of it. But I'm like, it works. It works so well. It's just like that scene's insane. It's absolutely insane. And we knew it was going to be insane. That's why we wanted to take this the time we took with it because we're like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. We're not gonna rush this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, the first films, the big kill in that film it's definitely scarring. And then
Yeah.
this film is just the big bedroom kill in this one is just like it's like okay, it's done, and then it's not, and then it's like okay,
Yeah.
it's done. Nope, it's not. So,
Oh my God, it keeps going. It's insane. Well, I loved it when we went to the premiere of it in Austin, and Sarah, who plays Barbara in the movie, she had not seen the scene, and by the end of it, she just turns out loud in the theater, goes to Damien, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Of course, everybody loses it in the theater. So just like it like I even remember like Casey after the screening, I think she was a little bit shaken up by that. She's like, "Wow, that's." I think that was her first time actually seeing the whole entire scene in its entirety, and I mean, she was there when we filmed it, but she was even shaken by it. By then, it's like, wow, this is not what I was expecting. This is wow, this is yeah. It's like, yeah, you're gonna be in horror film history now, girl. It's
Yeah,
just like,
definitely. Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely an iconic death in
yeah,
horror film history for sure.
yeah.
So what with it being very early along, like can we expect bigger and more violence and just a lot more blood, or it's like from the Terrifier sequel, Terrifier 3?
Hmm. Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. I mean, I haven't read the script yet, but I know some things.
Okay.
And I know Damien, of course, like his big thing is we got to keep doing what we've been doing. We need to stay true to the original concept of it all. And I know one thing he's wanted to pull a little bit back from the comedy
Okay.
and go darker with part three. And
Yeah.
but we're definitely not pulling back on the gore. I mean, that's one of the because we got approached by different studios for part three, and we decided to stick with the people that put part two out because I think they were giving us the most freedom with the same type of budget. And yeah, because we knew the studios would try to manipulate it and cut out things that would piss off the fans. We're like, no, we need to stick to doing what we're wanting to do, and that's what our who we've gone with. They're like, yeah, we'll just give you the money, you do what works, and that's I think Damien said like the first 5 minutes of the film a studio would not have allowed us to film. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't wait to see what he came up with. So
Yeah.
just like,
First 5 minutes. Yeah. That's
yeah,
it's
it's
like,
like, oh boy, because whew.
well,
I trust Damien. I trust that man's vision. With he understands horror. He understands what makes it tick. He understands what the fans want to see, and because he's a fan himself, he's a lifelong horror fan. So I trust that man's visions.
yeah, I cannot wait for the third film, and
Oh, I can't either.
and I mean everything going on. It's like hopefully everything in Hollywood is just the studios comes to their senses. Everything it just smooths out because right now, obviously, the studios need to pay their
Yeah.
actors and writers appropriately.
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly. I will say, because they're re-releasing Terrifier 2 in the theaters in November, there's going to be some extra stuff
awesome.
there. So you might see something pertaining to part three. I
Oh,
can't
okay.
say exactly, but I know Damien's got some goodies that he's wanting to put in, just a little extra there for the fans.
That's
So,
awesome.
stay tuned, stay tuned. But we're planning on starting to film part three in January. We've already applied for the interim agreements with SAG and everything like that. So, well, we're on board for what SAG wants to do, and I think that's what's important right now. Is like you're seeing a lot of independent films that are meeting the demands that SAG's wanting for the actors and also with the writers and stuff like that. And that's I think we're going to see a good boom for independent films coming up because
Absolutely.
they're the ones meeting the demands of the actors and the writers right now, and I think this is going to give us a chance to shine, and it might
Yeah.
change the industry in some way. So there's I think there's a lot of positivity that's going to be coming out of these strikes, and I think it's a change that's been needing to come for a while.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, David, for joining me and
Oh, you're very
talking.
welcome.
It's been a blast. So
Oh, thank you, thank you.